countdown. That's what I thought. It just says you're live.
Yes.
No countdown.
No countdown. Hello, everybody. We're just discussing one of the flaws of StreamYard, the method that we use to come into your living room, and how it doesn't go 5, 4, 3, which is how telly does it.
It just says you're live.
Yes, it goes you're live. And that's funny because tonight we're going to be talking about the media and disability on MZTV. And with that, hit the credits.
Welcome to MZTV.
You're a genius with me.
Well, I thought it had to be done.
That's great. Yes, it's been an interesting few weeks, hasn't it, Zechariah?
Interesting is one word. Interesting is one word. It has been an assault, hasn't it? So I'm just typing good evening on the comments. It's been an assault, hasn't it? It seems like the past couple of weeks, it's been like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's been I mean, it's ironic for me because I was asked by the BBC to start working on a kind of sort of little talk come training session about language and disability and how to get it right. And it's morphed into something bigger because of the fact that there's no point using the right words, which does happen when you're doing the wrong story.
No.
And so a training course that was going to be quite short has now turned into this marathon because I'm going through.
What a result!
Going through the BBC's recent coverage, and of course, I mean, yeah, it's just been bizarre. So, so where do we start? What one do we pick first? Well, I suppose you did show the Minister of Disabled People or Minister for Disabled
That came
people
first, didn't it? That was the first one that came. Was that a couple of weeks ago?
going on a raid to crack down on fraud within
In a
the
stab
disability
vest.
benefits sector.
Yeah, in a stab vest with cuffs and everything. And I mean, the thing is, our mate Dan White put a lovely little graph on today showing sort of like disability fraud.
Yeah.
Tax evasion.
Yes, 0.05% of the benefits claimed under disability benefit are fraudulent. So
and yet David Cameron,
not a big problem.
No,
but
David Cameron used it, didn't he? Initially, that was why he got rid of DLA because of the fraud rates.
Quite a lot of politics. They got away with it, so we tried. I mean, the stupid bit is right with PIP is they got rid of DLA saying fraud, even though there wasn't any. They introduced PIP, and everyone went, "Ooh, that's bad," and it is bad. My claiming PIP for me was a nightmare, purely because they don't employ the right kind of people to do the assessing job. So, you know, I was assessed by an OT. Now, I'm sorry, but an OT is not skilled enough to understand detailed medical information about someone with a medical history as complex as mine. And she didn't understand what passive exercises are. They're now called range of motion exercises. But basically, they're exercises that people do for you to keep your legs working when your legs don't work. My wife does them for me every day. And they thought I meant exercises, like going down the gym, and said, "Oh, he's fit enough to do exercises, so he won't go any."
They thought you was there doing leg presses, like bench presses.
Exactly. You know, so it's but the thing is, even though we've got this, you know, whatever the truth is, you expect a government of this ilk to be doing that. Oh, they're terrible, fraudulent, scroungy types. What's horrific is the media has picked up on it. Not the press, not the right-wing press. I expect that as well. I mean, what was it? The Telegraph ran a story a few days ago where you can put in your calculations and work out how much of your tax goes to benefits. And it's like, you know, but
and someone put in, wow, it's £50,000, and I'm like, well, you're all right then, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, what is it? It is a percentage of your tax goes towards benefits if you pay tax, and So if the percentage of it is 50 grand, they, I mean, we all know that most of our tax goes towards defence. Woo, which we really need, obviously, so we can send arms to Ukraine. But but the whole idea of working it out, and the thing that bugs me is, like, you worked, didn't you?
I did work, yes.
You worked all your life, and
Well,
then you got ill.
Yeah, I'd say most of it went wrong, but yes, I did work from early. I mean, early age. My first job, I was age 11. I didn't pay tax because I got £1.50 for the morning's work. But there you go.
But what I mean is you left. You went into a succession of jobs where you paid tax and
Yes.
you paid national insurance towards what might go wrong. The point of national insurance, people forget that national insurance is the same as paying private insurance, but you're paying it into the country. That's the concept of it.
But it shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter if some poor sod leaves school, gets hit by a car, and is paralysed, can't work. That's the idea. It's a lottery. It really is.
What I mean is the articles. I mean, like was it Jeremy Vine's post about languishing on benefits after being?
Sorry, we have to say it was Jeremy Vine on Five's post, not Jeremy Vine.
Okay.
He said, no, this was one of my team. It wasn't me that did it. And today there was a video of him meeting someone with a motor neurone disease. I think it's kind of a making up for it. Look at me, I'm talking to this person.
Well, yeah. I mean, without being funny, I used to work in the television industry. No, Mick, did you? Yes. And while I was the senior presenter on one of the shows I did, and I was like, we had a team of presenters, but I was one of the big ones. I couldn't tell the team what to do. It wasn't called Mick Scarlett's show. Do you know what I mean? No. There is some element of which, if the show's called you McEunice, then you at least say, I'm really sorry. No, don't get defensive. No. Don't get bullshit. Go, look, I'm really sorry. It's just one of those things. What we were doing was mirroring the rhetoric of the industry, of the wider press at the time. We realised we've made a mistake, and maybe even do a discussion about how language and what we're doing now on the on. I
mean, they withdrew the post, didn't they? They kind of withdrew it fairly prompt because it received massive backlash. Unlike the Telegraph, who haven't given a flying.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, almost, was it the next day or the day after the next day? They had Sam Renk on, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't get her on to discuss something about benefits, and I think that there's. One of the big problems is we've got this situation where there's a dialogue going on that's growing in its power. And like you said, the Telegraph is the ultimate expression of that, where disabled people are claiming benefits because some of them cannot work, right? And those people are being targeted and pilloried and, without it being a rounded discussion. And I think that's the point of the media. And that's, like, without being funny, that's the kind of point of shows like Jeremy Vine. You go on and have a discussion. But if the actual program is taking a stance on the view, like, there's a way of writing that says, with more people than ever being, claiming benefits because they can't work rather than they're out of work, what do you think the solution is? And then you can discuss it, and it can be, well, that needs to change.
But Channel 5 has always been, it's the Sun newspaper of TV, and it's always been very bad press for welfare, on benefits and proud and all stuff like that. And they've led this whole thing. They started the whole thing of having people on that are proud of being on benefits, don't really care. And that sells it to the public, doesn't it? We're on benefits. We don't care. I'm having a can of 4X or whatever.
You are right. It goes, what was it called? Benefit Street. Although, wasn't that Channel 4?
No, I think it was on Benefits and Proud. I think it was on Channel
But-
5. I didn't watch
I
it.
mean, one, the title, because I actually used to watch those shows, and it wasn't as straightforward as that, because a lot of the people that were on benefits couldn't work.
No.
They just weren't ashamed of not being able to
Yeah.
work, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
It's not like they were going, I could work, I can't be asked, right? Also, I don't actually think there's anything wrong with saying I could work, but I can't be asked, when you're living in a society where you've got British Gas making £6 billion a quarter profit, and then people are working in coffee shops, not making enough to pay their rent. I think there's an imbalance, and I can see that there is almost a political side to doing that. Being an old punk. And
I think
growing up
that
in
was the
era.
80s, wasn't it? There was this very proud of. I mean, UB40 was the form that you used to sign on.
I am the 1 in 10.
Yeah. And then wham bam. They sang. What was their one about?
With the
on
boys let you
benefits
meet
or
down on the line. I said DHSS. Exactly. You see, and I ironically, I mean, this is what's weird for me. Well, for both of us, I suppose we're both similar age. It feels a bit like we're going back to the 70s. You've got kind of all the whole rhetoric are the same, and and there are these. But the thing is that back then it was a case of there weren't the jobs.
Yeah,
the jobs went. The whole industry contracted. Loads of things shut down. People had to be on the dole, and I remember going into a job centre to talk about getting a job, and they basically said, "Forget it, you're unemployable. People like you don't work." So they signed me onto what was then called invalidity benefit, which then became incapacity benefit. Now, while that was all happening, I used this as a chance to pursue my musical career.
Yeah,
because they're paying me great. I can buy some gear and learn to play, and then I started doing gigs, and they became paid gigs. So then I would sign off for the week that I did the gig, and then sign on again because you were allowed to do that. And then eventually, I just got work and signed off, and then started paying tax and national insurance and paying into the system. And and loads of my friends did that. Loads of my friends used it as a chance to study, to further themselves, to follow the career they wanted, because the careers that they would have gone into were gone.
Yeah.
Now we've got loads of jobs, and it's a combination of a kind of dislike of this idea that people might be getting benefits out of your pocket, but also I think there's an element of like xenophobia about it, because these people don't want someone who isn't British to be doing these jobs. We don't want all these foreigners coming over here doing.
And yet they won't do it themselves.
Yeah.
So the traditional sort of labour's gone, isn't it? With people going out and doing those jobs that were then taken over and done at a cheaper rate.
I mean, the thing is as well is that there is this whole idea, I think, that the skills have gone a bit. Like people will come from other countries where they are really good at working in say, agriculture, for example, and they come over and they know what they're doing. And all the farmers say this. You get a load of young kids off sort of coming up to pick cabbages or whatever. Who's going to teach them? Who's going to train them? These people from Europe and whatever, they knew what they were doing. So they came over and they did their job, and then they went back home, and that was it. And everyone was happy. Now we've screwed that up. We won't talk about Brexit because that's nothing to do with today's subject.
It's nothing to do with Brexit at all.
But that's and I think that this is it's all part of a big panic stations. But what's shocking is that we are the target now. We're being made to be the people that the public see as being the problem.
Yeah,
and that's disgusting. Because, as I said, they're going, there's a massive increase in the number of people that are unable to work through ill health. That means they used to work. So that means the people they're talking about had a job, got ill during the pandemic, became unable to work. So they've paid in.
Or even the fact that now so many people failed to get PIP after being taken off of DLA, where they changed all the rules. they've lost their car, they've lost their independence, and so I can't work because you've taken away what enabled me to work.
Yeah, but this is and then get back to the media. This is the problem. What the media should be doing is looking into all of it.
But that's not a story.
But to me, it's a much better story. Why are more people unable to work than used to be? The idea, it's just the pandemic and everyone's got long COVID is ridiculous. Yeah. Because it just is. So therefore, what else is it? What other reasons? One of the things is we've lived through a change in our work practice, right? Where, I was working at Network Rail when all this kicked off, quite so long ago. And I helped them embed a system that meant you could work from home. They had 2,000 people working from home. When I left, we changed it and there were 22,500 people working from home. Now, what that now means is lots of people who are unable to leave home could enter the workplace.
Yep.
But we've got old William Rees Pencilhead walking about going, get back to the office. And everyone's saying, because we've got all these office space, we own all this office space.
Yeah, we're in trouble. We can't
get money from it. So they're saying don't work from home anymore. And all our city centres are dying because no one's buying cakes and sandwiches. And it's like, yeah, but the cities, the towns where they live will thrive.
Yeah.
Because you'll work from your desk, you'll go, I'm going to go and have a coffee. You'll leave your house and go to your city, your town centre, and not have to drive into London or whatever. But you can't ask people to go to work if they're disabled without making the workplace accessible.
But there's also this, we've got a comment here, and this has been very much me. I've been blogging and reviewing for a while just as a way of to stop me going mad. Donna's been caring for me, and it's that, can I make the leap? Can I get the work? Can I do it?
Yeah.
But with an unreliable health, and I don't know, I don't know when I'm going to be able to work. I can't go get a job because I don't know when I'm going to have a flare up. If I go to work, I may be able to do a day. I'm then going to have a good old flare up for a week, and I don't know when I'll be back. And it's that whole leap. It's leaving the security because your rent's paid. Well, your rent isn't paid. Not all our rent is paid, but your council tax. You've got all this in place. Yeah. And if you make the leap, it's so hard to get it.
Yeah.
But to give it a try and mess it up, it's scary. It is scary. But it's what we're trying to do now.
I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, this is so far, this has been much more about the benefit system of the media. But I think that's what should happen is that there should be a system that says, right, you've been deemed unable to work because you have an impairment and an illness or whatever. How much money would you need to live? In fact, I think that should be for everybody. What is the amount you live on? Yeah. And then you can work and still have that amount of money. Do you see what I mean? And so then one day you can go, well, I've only earned a couple of £100 this month, so I'll get my benefits to top it up. But I'm working, I'm trying my hardest, right? For all of those hardworking family rhetoric people, right? And then what happens is one day you'll go, oh, I've earned more than the amount that is agreed people need to live to work on. So now I can come off. And it's not you're not pushed off a cliff. It's a gradual. And I thought that's what universal credit was meant to be.
I think it is to a degree, but not everyone's on universal credit. And I think the problem is we get ESA, I think. I think universal credit has got its big problems.
Yeah. It's complete rubbish.
Yeah. But the problem is, going back to the media, the thing we've got here is we've got the Telegraph, and it's looking at the people who looked, hello, horse riding and all that. Oh dear, look down on
I pay £50,000 of my tax towards benefits.
And then we've got Jeremy Vine on 5 that are the people that are sat at home watching it, looking down at others, thinking there's other. They're the problem. When do you know how much of the audience is unemployed for Vine on 5?
I'd have thought quite a few. They didn't read their audience very well, did they?
No, and they're still getting grief for it. Lots of grief. I'm surprised they haven't been blocked.
But it's like, it's more than that though, because we've got this kind of coverage, but then there's other types of coverage that aren't quite as obviously troublesome.
No.
Like, was it this morning on BBC News that they told the story of a young girl that was going to school and she had cerebral palsy and it was she hadn't been to school and now she was going to school and all. And it was kind of like a good news story about a kid going to school. Now, obviously someone contacted me and said, have you seen this? And I was like, no. So I dived into it. And what it is a young girl hasn't been able to go to school because the school wouldn't take her and she wasn't accessible. So she was homeschooled by her mum.
Yeah.
And now she's finally going to senior school, which will take her. So rather than it be a story about how disgusting it is that this girl has not been allowed to go to school until she's 11, right? It's little Janie's going to school and it's going to be, she might get lost because she's not used to going to school. And it's that happens all the while, these twists where you find a story that actually is big and they make it about the person and they make it about sort of, we don't want to tell bad news about disability. So it's got to be inspirational and it's got to be, and it's got to be, isn't it amazing? And it's like, I started school in 1970, the first year that you could start school as a disabled person. Before that, you had to go to special school. So I went to a mainstream school. 1970. What is it? So she would have started school so she's 11, 5, so that's 6 years. So 2017. So in 2017, she couldn't find a school that could take her as a kid with quite mild cerebral palsy. It's not like she's profoundly impaired and needed someone to write for her. So this is the point. And for me, I mean, this is kind of what I'm going to be banging on about when I do my training is if you're going to tell the story, what is the story you're going to tell? Don't go, one of the things I think is that they're going, we've got to do more disability. We've got to do it. Inclusion, diversity. But what they aren't doing is asking any disabled experts and presenters and journalists to write the stuff.
No.
So you've got a load of people that don't know anything about it going, look, there's a story in a local paper about a little girl going to school. That would be lovely.
Wonderful. She's so cute.
Lovely.
Look at her walking into school. Yeah. We'll join her on her first day as she goes through the gates. I mean, was it yesterday I was watching Phil Spencer go for a walk with his dog, the new series, and he was off with some Paralympian, some visually impaired Paralympian. And the way it was being done, so I guess for you, sound is really important. And it was sort of, I can't explain, but it's just like, this is so It's awkward, isn't it? It's very awkward listening to it. It's that whole thing, like when you're out or even if you post, you do something. Oh, look, I've done this. And people are like, oh, you're wonderful. You're an inspiration. Well done, you. And you're like, okay.
I mean, it was because apparently she'd done some Paralympic sport. I don't follow sports, so I have no idea. But then she was on Dancing on Ice.
Oh, I don't watch that.
Yeah, I don't watch that either. You watch your boring
Strictly.
Dancing.
I watch Strictly.
Right, but so in fact, Strictly, I think, is an example of getting it right. When they had Rose on, I mean, it was a bit, I don't know, because I haven't watched it all, so it may have been
amazing. Yeah.
But I thought that one where she turned the sound down and that kind of to indicate how she counted and what it was like for her.
But it's the fact her partner, I think it was Giovanni, and he said, I've never had a dancer this good who's that attentive, because normally it's getting them to listen. But because she's actually into me and she's listening to me and my moves, my body rather than sound, she got it. But Strictly have got it very wrong. I can't remember the story, but it's was it Sophie? They're saying she was going to be the first person in a wheelchair to be on Strictly.
Yeah.
And I think the story went somehow, and I can't remember. I'm sorry, Sophie. It went really wrong, and they focused wheelchair bound or something like that.
Yeah. But see, that's not the beeb. This is it, right? That a lot of the journalists still don't understand, right? Especially print journalists are totally ignorant. and they will use any old phrase. A lot of them will find it difficult because they've been taught to not repeat phrases.
Yeah.
And like we use disabled people and we use it a lot, right? Because we don't like the other alternatives. So
we're
when you're
differently abled.
Exactly. So when you write like wheelchair user, Sophie Morgan, wheelchair user. So Sophie Morgan became a wheelchair user. They start finding that difficult because that's
So
not
just
good.
mention wheelchair user once and then just call her Sophie Morgan.
Yes. Or, well, exactly. And this is the lazy thing, is that the story is that Sophie Morgan might be on Strictly.
Yeah.
So they've got to bang on about the disability, but they don't understand what disability is. They don't understand. There's many ways that you could talk about Sophie, her impairment, what happened to her. Sophie's story is an amazing story, but they just go for quick, easy answers. And I think that is what we're seeing, whether it be benefits, scroungers, they're all languishing on benefits, whether it be little Jamie's going to school, hooray, or whether it be, inspo porn or whatever. It's lazy journalism. And I don't care what anyone says. Part of it is that there aren't enough disabled people working in disability and wanting to cover disability. There's quite a few people now in the industry, I think.
And the problem is there are so many people who, for health reasons or disability, are stuck at home and they could contact and say, could you write this article? Because I know countless disabled bloggers.
Yeah, the disabled bloggers, disabled journalists.
Yeah.
I mean, apart from people like Francis Ryan, Francis Ryan is probably one of the best disabled journalists I know. There's about Lucy Webster's another brilliant writer. There's
Frank
loads.
Gardner's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I find see Frank. I can't. Yeah, no. Frank. I think one of the problems we face is Frank is great, but Frank doesn't talk well about disability. He's still very medical model. He's very overcoming inspiration.
And he will try and stand there if he can to present the piece rather than go.
I mean, I've been on the radio with Frank, and I had to bite my lip because he took the conversation over, which for me was no mean feat. Wow. But two, the way he talked about the subject. You get these people that go, well, if you really put your mind to it, there's nothing you can't achieve. And it's like, I can't fly upstairs, you git. Do you know what I mean? People can't. If I really wanted to, I'd see. I can fly a plane. I'm blind. I can fly a plane if I really wanted to. No, you can't.
No.
And there are things you can't do. And it's not fair to paint that. So really, you just need to put and it was about flying, flying with your wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, no amount of willful, dreaming and pushing yourself is going to stop a baggage handler from breaking your wheelchair.
No.
Do you know what I mean? And and the problem is you've got people like him high up in the industry who are saying, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, tell the story of the little girl bravely going to school because it's a good story. No, it's not. So I think we need...
We're hit with these stories all the time, though, aren't we? I mean, the biggest one was the guy who his friends helped him to stand for his first dance, down to the latest one, which had real splits in division of the guy who was being pushed through a triathlon. Was it triathlon or a marathon?
Oh, no, it's a marathon. Yes, no. Oh, yes.
And then right at the last minute, they scooped him up and walked across.
Now, this, I think, is part of the problem that the media has. In that, they don't understand the possible negative aspects of that.
No.
And I think that's another... I've always said, and I always say to everybody, the way to get coverage of any minority is to employ so many of them in your sector that they actually become a voice that gives you the information you need. You shouldn't need to be second guessing yourself.
No.
Because almost all non-disabled people thought that was just the most amazing thing they'd ever seen. There you go. So Rob Burrows was carried by Kev Sinfield. Thank you very much for that. Now, and everyone was going that the Kev guy should be given a knighthood. right? And all this stuff, and how
Right.
amazing it was, because he carried ours and a friendship, and it was true love. It was a
No,
bond.
now if he'd picked me up and carried me across the finish line, that would be a knighthood.
Exactly. And we don't know what was agreed between those two men, right? But what was what's really important is to understand that disabled people, we're all different. So to blanketly say that there is something special about a man that is so heavily paralyzed being carried across the finish, he's just wheeled 26.5 miles in a chair, but for the last meter and a half, you're going to carry him like a child, right? That might be something they've agreed. It might be
That special bond between them. Look, mate, I've got you. Here we go. It was the way that everybody took it up, and it was like,
everybody else piled in about how wonderful and heartwarming and inspirational. It focused on the fact that Kevin, the non-disabled person, was the hero. I thought that was something that I found that wasn't really discussed.
Now, if Kev wants to push me for a marathon and then pick me up and carry me across the finish line at 20 stone,
you know what?
Then we're talking.
Now we can enter the London Marathon, right? I think both of us should do that.
I can't.
Right? And what we should do is we should go for a whole 3 months beforehand. We should just have videos of us eating cake, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we get someone to push us. And then at the end we go, right, now carry us.
Right, you say for 6 months eat cake. I'm already in training, right? This is the problem. I would love to go. I know a guy who has done the Darren Cossey. He's done the London Marathon in his everyday wheelchair. And he's amazing. He built his own trike out of, because he was a motorbike, had an accident. He did end up trapped under it when it collapsed and he was working on his own, the silly sod. You know, jet skiing. Darren's one of those ones, he's ridden a motorbike, 2 wheels, round a racetrack going for it. And when he finishes, they kind of catch him. Darren will push, to his detriment, because he's got a complete, no, I think he's incomplete, actually. T5, I think he is. But for me, you know, I can't do it. I'll go out there and I'll give it a damn good push for an hour. But then I'm in deep shit for weeks.
This is the point, is we're all different.
Yeah.
And I think the thing, and this is something else I'm going to be saying in my training, is I've found some interviews where people have been interviewed and they've put what they've said in quotes, but used it as the direction of the story.
Yeah.
And the key is that not all disabled people are what we call politically aware. Right? No. Not everyone knows what the right language is, or what to do, or what to say, or how to empower others. And all this
I've learned the social model from you. Exactly. I wouldn't have known about it.
And also, a lot of disabled people don't know that what they're saying is kind of inspo porny, especially Paralympians who are basically told from day one that you're inspiring others, and it's like, unless you're inspiring them to do sport, you aren't. But that's, you know, So the journalist's job and the presenter's job and the reporter's job is to bring that knowledge to the piece and say, right, this person has said, for example, I had to overcome my disability to do this thing that I'd always wanted to do. And I think it's something that all people with disabilities should understand. They can do it if they really want to. Right now, that's something you see a lot.
Put your mind to it. Yeah.
People, right? Now, the journalist takes that. They can either report it verbatim, make the whole article about this idea, and really make it almost say to those people that haven't been able to do it, it's your fault. That's what it says subtly. Or they go, at which point, Janet or Peter or whatever said this. And then delve into so how was it? How hard was it to do? What did you do? How did you overcome it? What barriers? What things did you find you couldn't do? So that then you can give a whole reporting onto it. So you can
also speak to people that have pushed and still failed because their bodies just can't do it.
The other thing I think as well is telling stories of people who haven't climbed a mountain and haven't run a marathon,
Yeah.
but that have done something that was amazing for them. And it's funny because when I worked at the BBC at the DPU, Disabled Programs Unit, Disability Programs Unit, so we made programs about disability every week for 36 weeks a year, half an hour. So we covered big things and then little things. Someone cooks and people making clothes and just little things. And like, there's loads we know from doing this show, but there's loads of people doing little stuff. That's not, oh, look, he's being pushed up a mountain in a wheelchair or something, but there is a story that is positive for our community.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's like, it's the big stories. It's like, you'll see the guy in a wheelchair who's doing chin-ups. He'll still have his wheelchair strapped to him while he does them. Not right now, people. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to hope Donna's going to jump in now. Zek isn't feeling very well.
Oh no, you're right, mate.
No, I'm feeling really rough. So I'm gonna go and tell Mrs. Richardson to carry on. She's not going to like it, but you're going to meet Councillor Donna Richardson.
Well, what we could do, if you want, mate, is just call it a day. This is a perfect example of what we mean, folks.
Yeah.
Right? Some people have impairments that suddenly, like that, they can't do it. But Zek he came on to do this feeling rough, didn't you, mate?
Yeah, I'm getting really.
I might have to go. And it may be, folks, that we've done 36 minutes. We've only got another bloody 5 minutes. We're meant to be going anyway.
Yeah.
So look,
I'm going to have to sign off straight away because my brain is real. I'm sweating here.
Cool. Let's call it a day.
Yeah.
We'll come back to this subject because let's face it, it's one we can talk about for ages.
Yeah.
Next time, we've got a really interesting show where we're talking about ME, aren't we?
We are. Yes, I've got somebody on. Yeah. Sorry, brain's going out.
No, yeah. So I'll sign off. You just sit there and just do that, right? So we're going to be covering this subject. To me, it's really interesting. Obviously, Zek lives with ME. We're going to be bringing someone else in that does too. We've seen an example of how ME can strike you like that tonight. So that's going to be a great show. That's in 2 weeks' time, I think, because we've gone out of sync now, so I don't know what's happening. But for now, from me, Mick Scarlett, and from the wonderful Zek, it's Buddy.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, folks. Right.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye-bye.